Hey everybody, it's Ron from Pickdawgz, and this is Ron's Bank Shop Breakdown. We're going to go over 5 college basketball games for Tuesday, November 4th, 2025. Now, if you like this video, make sure to hit that thumbs up button and subscribe. Put those college basketball picks in the comments section below. And if you're looking for my best bets, the games I love the most, including my daily college basketball Bank Shop best bet, you can find those at the Premium Picks tab at pickdawgz.com. There's also a link in the description. Alrighty, here we go. Here is the second day of the college basketball season on Tuesday. First up, we've got Nicholls and Kentucky. This one is 7 p.m. Eastern. It's going to be on the SEC Network Plus. Now, there's a lot to like about Kentucky going into the season. This is a team in the top 5 in the KenPom ratings, top 10 in the AP polls going into the year. A ton of talent on this team. They were able to keep a fair amount of their production. Only one starter, but a lot of other depth pieces that are going to have big roles this year. And for Mark Pope in the first year taking over Kentucky, basically a blank slate. But you bring in some nice transfers. You bring back some key players. Kentucky is going to be a competitive team and a contender in the SEC, that's for sure. And they should be able to win this game comfortably. But I do think this is too much. I think it's too steep of a spread in game one against a Nicholls team that does a lot of things right when you're looking at a dangerous road dog getting this many points. First of all, they are a really good defensive team, especially against the three-point shot. They had the 13th best three-point shooting defense last year. Opponents only scored 28% of the points against Nicholls from the perimeter. So Kentucky, I do think they'll have a fine day offensively, but I don't think they're going to be able to put up the 100 points we saw them do at the beginning of the year last year against teams like Wright State and Bucknell. I think this is going to be a lower scoring game for Kentucky. They'll still be able to score pretty easily, but I think Nicholls' defensive game plan and coaching from Tevin Sadler is really, really sound. Also, Nicholls last year did a great job at taking care of the basketball. They were top 15 turnover percentage offensively, pretty good offensive rebounding team. They got to the free throw line, and also a pretty good three-point shooting team. So a lot of those are key metrics I look at for teams that are catching so many points in a matchup like this. I think Nicholls can keep this game in that 20-point range. We're getting a ton of points in this one. I'm going to take the Colonels in this one, plus the points on the road. Next up, we got Georgia Southern and East Carolina. This one's 7 p.m. Eastern on ESPN+. And before we get into this game, I wanted to mention, I forgot to mention the first game, but I said it on Monday. I'm going to be treading lightly on Tuesday and the first couple of days overall in college basketball. No crazy big bets for me, as the first game of the season for all these teams. Still uncertainty, with especially in the modern day in college basketball, with all the players all over the place with the transfer portal. I think that even as early as later in the week, we can take advantage of overreactions to one game. If you think a team's going to be good this season and they maybe have a lousy opening night performance, and now you can get them at a cheap price in game 2, those are the spots we're looking to take advantage of. So there'll be plenty of those throughout the month and throughout the season. First couple of days, I think it's best to tread lightly. And a game like this, there's a lot of uncertainty for Georgia Southern and most of the Sun Belt. I think the Sun Belt is a really tough conference to predict. It's why you look at their coaches poll, it's all over the place. So many teams getting first place votes because there is just a lot of different players. I mean, Georgia Southern doesn't return a starter from last year. A lot of players from overseas, subdivision situations. So Georgia Southern, I don't necessarily love their roster on paper, but like I said, there's uncertainty there. We'll see what they look like. East Carolina is just a little bit more trustworthy for me. I really like Mike Schwartz, coach. He built a nice team for the Pirates last year. Rough start to conference play. They ended up with a winning conference record. I think that East Carolina, a very sound defensive team, and Mike Schwartz does a great job there. I think that East Carolina, despite losing their top 2 scorers in Walker and Felton, who were really fun to watch with the Pirates the last couple of years, will be fine. You got Jordan Riley as a guard, back right around 15 points per game last season. Somebody you can trust. He's not really a talented three-point shooter, just around 25% last year. I do think those numbers improve, but he is still somebody that you trust in the backcourt. 6 rebounds per game as well. Good playmaker. Defensively, East Carolina, I think, will be in great shape. The question is the offense. Can it be potent enough to cover this sizable spread at home? I think they can. I think that East Carolina does enough in this game. I think they return enough production. I think that the chemistry will be there, good enough early in this one to find the cover and the win in the cover as a pretty sizable favorite. So I'm going to take East Carolina in this one and lay the points. Next up, we've got Robert Morris and Iowa. This one 8:30 Eastern on the Big Ten Network. Two teams that did not return a lot of production from last year's rosters, but there's a difference between these two teams. You got Robert Morris on one side, Great season last year, 15-5 in conference play. They won the Horizon League. They were a 15 seed in the Big Dance. They played a very competitive game in that first round matchup against Alabama in the 15-2 matchup. 90-81 the final score. They lost it, but they were up by 1 point with 6:50 to go in the second half of that game. It was a very competitive game, one of the more competitive games for those long shot matchups in the first round. So it was a great year for Robert Morris, one of the best years for the Colonials in a while, but you'll lose your entire starting roster, starting lineup, and a lot of your depth pieces as well. Andrew Toole, I think, did a good job at retooling in the offseason, bringing in a lot of transfers, subdivision, some other players in D1 as well. I think Robert Morris is fine, by the end of the year. I think they'll be a top 3, top 5 team in the Horizon League. But in game 1, especially on the road against a tough matchup in a power school, I think we could see some growing pains early for Robert Morris. And you look at Iowa, they're returning, a lot of their roster, basically everybody. But it's a little bit different. Ben McCollum was the coach at Drake last year. He moved to Iowa. He's now the head coach of Iowa, and he took a lot of his best players from that really successful Drake team with them to the Hawkeyes. So Iowa, you basically take the Drake team from last year, take off the logo, put a Hawkeye up there. That's the Iowa team, and they have a lot of experience, a lot of chemistry, a lot of talent, and I think they'll be fine in a game like this. They also have a player from Robert Morris last year. They took Alvaro Folgueras, who was one of the best players for Robert Morris last year. So he knows his former coach's system, Andrew Toole. I think that's going to be key in recruiting and scouting for this first matchup. And I think Iowa's just in a good spot here at home, laying the number. I'm going to take Iowa, lay the points. Next up, we've got Texas and Duke. Great game in this one, 8:45 Eastern on ESPN, a part of the Dick Vitale Invitational. Now, these are two teams, a lot of expectations going into every season in college basketball, but you look at both these teams, they have to replace quite a bit. They both have to replace their top 2 leading scorers and guys with NBA-level talent. You've got Trey Johnson for Texas, 20 points per game last year, one of the best college basketball players, 6th overall pick in the NBA draft for the Wizards. That's a big loss for Duke, of course. You got Cooper Flagg and Con Kneppel, 2 top 5 picks in the NBA draft this offseason. They're off to great starts in their NBA career, and that's a lot of points per game and a lot of playmaking that you have to replace. But for Duke, we know, and both teams, but mostly Duke, they do a great job in recruiting. They really replace these guys very well, and they had 4 top 25 signings in the offseason in terms of recruiting, including the Boozer brothers, Cameron and Caden, who are going to be difference makers right away with this Blue Devils team. So there's a reason why Duke, despite losing 2 top 5 NBA picks, lottery picks in the offseason, is still a top 10 team in the AP polls and KenPom ratings going into the year. Now for Texas, like I said with Trey Johnson, Arthur Kaluma, your second leading scorer and leading rebounder, is gone. The backcourt looks fine for Texas. Jordan Pope, Tremont Mark, a good duo in the backcourt. I've mentioned before, early season, especially neutral site games, I'm looking for teams that can have a solid backcourt that can get the job done in these matchups against tough teams. But that front court is a concern for me for Texas, at least right away. Also in a new system. We got to mention that Sean Miller takes over the job at Texas this season. So a lot of new faces, some returning, but also a new system to learn. And up against a Duke team that's very young but still extremely talented, I just don't think Texas is enough in this one to keep up for 40 minutes. I think it's going to be a competitive game in the first half, but I look for Duke to pull away at the end. I'm going to take Duke in this one and lay the points in a great game. Next up, we've got UT Martin and UNLV. This one is going to be 10 p.m. Eastern. I don't really have a lot of high expectations for either of these teams in their respective conferences this year. But I will say UT Martin returns a lot of production from last year's team, not necessarily from the scoring standpoint, but 5 players from last year's roster, a few players you could consider starters for UT Martin as well. While UNLV, it's a new team, it's a new system, a new head coach under John Pastner, who had some pretty good success at Memphis in the 2010s, not so much at Georgia Tech afterwards. But for me in this very first game of the season with the new system, even at home, I wouldn't want to be laying this many points with an inexperienced UNLV team, at least in terms of chemistry, with the new look. A lot of transfers from all over D1. Like I said, these are the types of teams that I think can be competitive as road dogs, home dogs, but laying this many points as a home favorite, it's no bueno for me. I think UT Martin can keep this game right around 10 points, and I think that this is a spot where we're just getting way too many points. I'm going to take the Skyhawks plus the points. I think they can compete through this one through the first half, maybe even flirt with an upset through 20-25 minutes, but UNLV should be able to win pretty comfortably towards the end. UNLV wins, UT Martin finds the cover. And that's it. Those are the games for Tuesday in college basketball. Hope you enjoyed this video. Again, if you're looking for my best bets, you can find those at pickdawgz.com under the Premium Picks tab. There's also a link in the description. As always, Ron Romanelli, good luck.